Hey, what is up, guys? My name is Guillaume. This is Thoman's Guitars and Basses, and in this week's episode of Hit the Tone, we're going to look at the song One Vision by Queen, starting with our guitar setup. And obviously we're talking about the one and only Brian May in that context and his very, very red special guitar. It is a one-of-a-kind instrument. He built it with his dad when he started learning the instrument. There are tons of replicas and inspired by guitars on the market. Harley Benton actually makes one of those. The thing is, just like every other kind of super special guitars like that, it's always out of stock. But there'll be a link in the description if you want to have a look at it, maybe pre-order one or get on the list, because it's usually kind of crazy. But essentially, Red Special is just a 3 single coil instrument with a whole bunch of different switching options for in phase, out of phase, which are differences for sure, but minimal. And as usual, the point of this format is not to give you like the exact recipe, otherwise it would be the Red Special into a Vox AC30. We'll get to that. But to get to the right ballpark, at least I'd recommend using a 3 single coil type of guitar like this one. This is the PRS Silver Sky, but any sort of Fender Stratocaster or any sort of S-type guitar with a single coil in the bridge will do just fine. So that's going to be my guitar for the day. As far as pedals and amp are concerned, Brian May is the most famous user of Vox AC30s, boosted into with a Rangemaster treble booster type of circuit, which is extremely cool, extremely loud. I think I've already done an episode on Queen and Brian May's setup, and I used like a Vox AC15 with a treble booster type of pedal in front of it, and I was super happy with that result. But since then we've had the Ruby Top Boost Amplifier 63, it's a Ruby 63 by UAFX, which is we did like a full-blown demo of that pedal as well as the other two that came out this year. And to my ears, when I tried that was the closest sound that I heard, that I played through at least, to go into that Brian May, Rory Gallagher type of vibe with a really, really loud AC30. So that's going to be my pedal for today. I'm not using it direct with a cap simulation. That's turned off, and I'm going into the normal channel of the Fender Deluxe Reverb because that is extremely neutral. There's not much to that channel. The EQ is like at 5, so very flat, and it takes that kind of preampy pedals really well. So that's the sound. I'm super happy with that. I think it's a fairly manageable and relatively more affordable version of that kind of rig. So this is what I'm going to be using for today. Now let's have a look at how to play the riff exactly. And as usual, before we get started on the lesson, please note that all the gear that I'm using today and some more recommendations will be linked in the description box. If you like the sound of that pedal or that amp or that guitar or any other thing that I think will get you to that Brian May ballpark at least. Now, there isn't much to that riff. It's just an epically powerful intro. It's one of my favorite from Queen. It's like not underrated, I would say. I don't think anything by Queen is underrated, but it's definitely one of those, like it's not Bohemian Rhapsody, let's call it that. But I really love that riff. Fairly simple. I'm just going to give like one bit of advice to beginners out there. Those are bar chords. Bar chords can be a little bit tricky at first, and even more so when you spread them out to go half a step down on the root note, which is what that whole riff is about. So it can get to like a fairly big stretch if you're a beginner, if you have smaller hands. Don't give up on it. Take your time to practice the chords individually, and then, you know, progressively manage to like get that root down half a step for that position. It's going to be super useful for not only that kind of rock and roll, but that was also a big thing in the 80s. And then if you go into metalcore, that's also a big thing. So those like type of chord shapes are really useful, and I think that's a really good riff to start practicing them. But here's a close-up to how to play the riff exactly. So that's it, guys. I think with that you have all the tools you need to hit the tone on the song One Vision by Queen and the legendary sound of Mr. Brian May. As usual, I hope that video was useful. Maybe you've learned a thing or two, and if so, please consider liking it, subscribing to the channel, ringing that little bell so that you don't miss out every other episode that we put out each week. Take really, really good care of yourselves, keep playing music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.